Welcome to The Lost Signals discusses film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Mosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello, class, and welcome to the Lost Signals Dojo. I'm your sensei, Jonathan Ian Manzur, who is going to be discussing the art of self-defense along with Christopher Morgan.
Good evening.
And Scott Thurlow.
Hi.
All right, Scott, continue with the funny logline.
Yeah, so I've gone with the Cape Fear Fight Club.
Yes, and that's...
I think that's rather accurate.
I'm going to continue on with the plot. A young man, well, not young anymore, 35-year-old man named Casey is living a beta male lifestyle. And he is mugged by a biker gang, not like a Harley-Davidson biker gang, but a kind of, I don't know, Japanese style from what I can imagine, like biker gang type thing. Oh, with the...
kind of look like Daft Punk.
They mugged him. Yes. They were, he was mugged by Daft Punk, and he decides to join a dojo run by Sensei Lindsay, who you don't find out is his name until much later, who is attempting to train him in becoming an alpha male.
The art of being a man.
Yes. And it turns out that Sensei was, in fact, the leader of the biker gang, who is going around, I think, either trying to gather people to join the dojo.
Just fight clubbing people, like I said.
And also to... basically get kills for his crew and further entrench them in this cult-like atmosphere.
It's also mentioned that he's blackmailing them because he tapes their actions and so forth.
So, it's a progression of violence, and eventually Casey and Sensei confront each other in a duel to the death. It's a very quirky film.
Yes. That's exactly what I said when I came out of the theater.
I enjoyed the entirety of it. I wasn't bored throughout, but it's a fairly simple narrative. It's more about addressing themes and also being quirky.
Yep.
So it's structurally sound. They do their Chekhov's guns. I mean, I knew upon watching like the first scene that he was in charge of the biker.
We figured that out pretty quickly.
It seemed fairly obvious, right, to you guys? Yeah.
But I don't think that necessarily was meant to be necessarily a surprise.
Right.
I don't know. I don't want to give it a 3, but it's structurally sound.
It's funny because I was coming my immediate reaction was like, you know what? I'll probably give it a 3 because that very same thing. Yeah, like it's not the greatest thing ever, but it had a certain. And a nice, I think, 3-act structure.
It certainly did.
You can cut it up very nicely, and there was nothing left curve or anything, or like even again like the surprise wasn't really a surprise. So like it was more about the relationship and like the power dynamics really.
You're watching the growth of this character as from a weakling to buying into the system, and then becoming disillusioned with the system.
Yeah, exactly. So like maybe that goes to a bit of a character, like the character question.
But it's a character
piece. Yeah, for sure.
Piece, so.
I get you. So like I kind of want to like I don't want to give it like I don't know, it's weird. There's nothing wrong with it, you're right. It's perfectly structurally sound and it all makes sense. It all comes together. It all ties itself at the end. It's the ending it should be, given like the events precluding it. Yeah. So like I could be fine with giving it a 3. I just was gonna sort of backdoor ourselves into giving it a 2 to give it a lower score, but I'm not sure if that's fair to the film itself. So
and I agree with you because it doesn't feel like but because of its simplicity of its narrative. It feels lacking in some way, but I don't think it is either because that's the point necessarily is the narrative.
Right, that's not a detriment. Yeah. So good, Chris.
I'm right on the same page as you guys. Like I'm sitting here going, it's structurally sound, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time giving it a 3 too. There's nothing like wrong with it. It's just that at times I was kind of like, maybe there was a mild pacing issue, but then again, I keep going back and forth on it because I'm like, well, I kind of felt at times there's a little pacing issue. Sometimes I was a little like, okay, but when you sit back and look at the piece as a whole, it's like, well, there's nothing really wrong with it.
In a way, it's sort of a novella length.
Yeah, I like that
narrative.
Yeah,
stretched out to a novel.
Yes.
And sometimes when you read works like that, it's like, oh, this was a good idea. You just didn't have enough.
I kind of was going to say that later on.
Maybe that's it.
But does that make it a poor narrative structure?
I don't think so. Like, I don't think we should take away credit because, while I agree, Chris, maybe to a little bit of lesser degree that it had like maybe a few, like 2 or 3 like lull points to it, but that's it. But as you were saying, I do agree that as a whole narrative, as a story unto itself, it was perfectly fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Even it might be a little bit simplistic, and maybe most of it will go to themes in a second. But as the story itself stands, I really can't fault it too badly. Like, I just that, we often like take the, if you don't want to give it like the perfect score, or like a bigger score, we'll dock off a point for plot. But I don't know if that, again, like is completely fair here. So I might be convinced to give it a fine, give it the 3 that it probably earned.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there. I'm going to give it a fine 3.
Yeah.
Exactly. That your point actually harken back to the way I take dialogue.
Okay.
If it's structurally well, it doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be quotable. It's got to be,
I like the novella comparison there. I do like that a lot.
I agree. So yeah, I'd give it a 3.
Okay. Chris, continue talking with themes.
Oh boy, themes.
Time's up.
You're a man.
Now you're a man.
Man. The themes are how we define ourselves, how we define masculinity, how we define ourselves within our relationships. I mean, what is expected of us? What do we do? And to what extent, and to this is obviously an exaggeration at point, do we take to achieve those? And what does prompt somebody into changing drastically? Say so here's from that. I mean, this guy was probably even a Delta male. I mean, and
very nice.
And he was propped up by this sociopath, and but it was an exaggeration, but it also was a really good look at. All right, look, if you look at the way he is with his coworkers, you've got those 3 muffin heads in the
break room.
In the break room, yeah, that one guy has got the male magazine, the symbol, and it was just like boobs and how to be a man. And what was the? Oh, damn.
One of them said wolf, the man's pet.
Yeah,
a true man's pet or something like that.
And so, I mean, these guys define themselves from like basically GQ type masculinity, and he came in there and he's ready to kick ass and take names, and he basically floors everybody. Just in attitude, he makes one of these 3 guys get up and walk away.
He out-alphas them.
He out-alphas them.
No, here's the thing: he out-alphaed the alpha of their pack, and then the other 2 immediately fall into his.
Exactly.
Let's do push-ups, and they're immediately taking off.
Yeah, that was very interesting, and also, I mean, this was a look at misogyny because look at here's a woman who by every right earned everything
and is qualified as hell.
She was a lone woman in the dojo for the adults, rather, not for the kids, but her changing room was like the boiler closet.
Yeah, it was like
yeah, and it was storage closet. I wasn't quite sure, but I mean, it really does show. It really is a treatise on like, or if you want to take a look at the GQ the masculinity, the women are. Actually, it's not even that. In society, how women are always they don't, no matter what they do, they don't always earn what men do.
Just to interject quickly. Actually, in the book, it's a picture of 5 boobs ranked.
Yeah.
No faces, no
That's
bodies,
true.
just
Right.
just the
5 pairs of boobs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that he photocopied that, and it's, I don't know, because it said when he photocopied the magazine, it's kind of like saying like he was trying to copy. I mean, he was literally trying to copy these things. It wasn't sticking to him. But I mean, it does say a lot. I mean, it is a nice cross section of misogyny, and that basically a strong, the strength of a person is to judge a person by their character and stuff. And at the end, he's just like, "Hey, I am the alpha here, but I don't deserve to be." And he hands the black belt to Anna and says, "You deserve here." And she's like, "With all respect, thank you. Now get back in line, yellow belt." I mean, it was just a very, very nice moment, and it was I'm not even gonna get the whole on the guns issue and everything that they may have skipped across. But
it was in there, but it wasn't like the major factor.
But no, I was gonna say Themes gets a very, very strong one. I liked what they did with it, how they went about doing it, and
to rebut, I felt that the themes in here might have been muddled in quite a bit. So, I want to start off with the guns issue, the knives issue, and karate. What is their message about guns? Because he wins with a gun at the end. And breaking, there's no rules in fighting. So, and as the gun shop owner, who's probably one of my favorite characters in this, is both talking about the dangers of owning a gun and be like, "Why don't you want it?" Because he's got a child. Well, we got semi-working safety locks.
Yeah, so semi-reasonable.
When he called up, he's like, "Do you have a child?" Or whatever. He brought that up again.
And it's like, "Oh, did you get a knife?" Well, 9 out of 10 knives will lose to guns. But so are guns a good thing? Are guns a bad thing? I don't know what they were necessarily trying to say with that. Secondly, to the point with the misogyny, it's interesting that there's an implication that no matter how hard a woman works, it will require a male to give up power for her to gain power.
That I did actually was thinking about that when I was.
Yeah, I mean the final thing sort of had that in there. Not sort of, it definitely did for sure. So go on.
That's perhaps the most cynical point in this very cynical movie about masculinity and femininity and role, because it just seems like they had a lot to say, and they're throwing a lot of
stuff into the blender, we'll say.
Yes, and I don't know. I want to give it a 1, but I also kind of would like clarity. So what are you guys' opinions on that?
Well, I mean, I do see what you're saying, and I really didn't. I was thinking about it right when I got to the ending. I'm like, well, he did relinquish power, but is this saying that a male's got to, is it that a woman can succeed only when a male relinquishes power? Or is it say that, listen to men, fucking drop, realize, you recognize in yourself.
Give credit where credit is due. And when
you
you're
realize what is earned for yourself and you let somebody else have it.
Power recognizes power.
Yeah. So I'm seeing what you're saying.
Theme. Yeah, man. So you're right. It's a little lopsided. It's up and down. I get it. So while all this stuff is there, you're right. Is it effective at whatever the intention may be? Because they're almost playing both sides at certain points in the movie, right? So I don't know.
I mean, our hero kills a cop at one point, and it's never really addressed ever again.
Sure, the guy says he's a cop, and then we should take that on face value, right? But you're right. It throws in one thing, and the gun over shop guy was a perfect example where he's spitting all these statistics about how the downside of guns, but then he's also talking up the positive side of owning a gun, how it could help you.
And it turns out it helped him at the end.
Yeah, and literally Chekhov's gun comes back and saves the day. Yeah, so it's weird. You're right.
Yeah, you got me on the surface. Myself,
I was going to wait because I wasn't going to say anything to you guys previously. On the surface, it seems like a somewhat positive thing, but it's a dark absurdist satire, pretty much in genre. Mm-hmm. It's it's going to have a couple of things that are exaggerated, of course, here and there for effect, but nevertheless, the core issues are there. But I don't know, I'm tend to side with you, E. I don't know if it was effective or if they said what they thought they were saying with this film. So I might have to err on the side of a soft 0 just because of that fact. You can't really point to be this is what they wanted to say. They're throwing one side and then the other. Maybe that's the point, to try to balance it out. But I don't think that exact thing was well realized within the film.
And there's a sort of hint that Casey, our protagonist, is turning into the sensei. Yeah, he gave up power, but in a way, he is starting to have the traits of the man who, and if it's to be believed that the sensei Lindsay killed his master, which I think that they kind of allude
It's rather
to.
heavily implied to me.
He said he learned all the wrong lessons from.
He learned one right lesson, but then like 5 bad ones. I guess we'll say like 5 negative ones. Yeah, you're right. I think it's a little bit. It's just muddled enough that I'm gonna go on the zero side of the fence on themes, but not that it was bad or anything.
No,
and not that it was unclear, or maybe that because it was unclear enough that I might have to sort of walk it back and give it a 0.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to change my score too because see, I mean, to be honest with you,
and Alpha doesn't change their scores.
Well, I was wavering. I was undecided anyway.
I'm completely secure in who I am.
No one's ever accused Chris of being an alpha male, anyways. But
that's a bunch of horse shit anyway. It's like
take it easy. You're gonna kick my ass now.
Anyway. Whoa! No need to get violent, Chris.
Yeah.
No,
Go on.
I mean, because the whole alpha thing is kind of a myth anyway. Because like when you have dogs, everybody's like, oh, you've got to put yourself as the alpha. I'm like, no.
He also fed someone to a dog.
Yeah, he also
I think
fed
he had the
someone.
dog bite his balls off. I don't know if he fed the guy.
No, it ripped his throat out.
Oh, that's what it was.
But he did. But the sensei did give him an attack dog.
Yeah.
I mean, he did.
Thus, further proving the point that all he did was
as a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 0. I mean, you're right. The message is completely muddled in this.
Yeah, I'm saying just softer.
I mean, I really liked
but
ripping on the GQ alpha male type bullshit, but you're right. At the end of
good points,
but at the end of the day, it doesn't really deliver on those.
Let's say,
it doesn't coalesce.
Exactly, it doesn't follow through. Exactly,
Yeah.
everything you guys just said, I think, is probably reason for giving a softer 0, but still 0 on that front.
All right, Scott, talk about the antagonist.
Toxic masculinity, of course, as embodied by Sensei and and his cronies, I suppose. So yeah, like I thought he was a fine character. Like I said, there's another movie just came to mind, like not single white female, but maybe something like that. Like he creepily like latches onto like you said, perhaps quote unquote beta males who he can then like manipulate and bring into his fold and make himself feel better and more powerful by controlling them. Like, here's how to be a man, and I'll teach you how to be a man. Like while doing his karate shit.
You know who you remind me of? Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite?
Yes.
If it was much darker, yeah, exactly. That's really funny, but I think it's valid as well. So yeah, I think his name was Leslie, not Lindsay, but it doesn't matter.
He's Leslie.
He had a.
I think of Lindsey Graham. Sorry,
he had a feminine sounding name.
There you go. There's somebody who's.
So you could say like he had like a Freudian excuse or whatever, but like I think he was pretty good because he was just creepy enough but believable. Like at first he's like, oh, this guy's a little off kilter, but he's truly at least from Jesse Eisenberg's Casey's perspective, he's like, yeah, this guy's okay. He's trying to teach me, and like I want to learn from him. I want to learn how to quote unquote be a real man. So like, and then of course got increasingly more uncomfortable and creepier as it went on until he discovers the true length of his nefarious plan, and that in fact he's the one sort of creating this cycle of violence and then getting people into his dojo to train them and bring them, and then sort of bring them the other end of the road, if you will, while they go out and cause violence. So I think he was pretty effective. I like the character, the actor. I can't remember his name offhand, but it doesn't matter.
Emily Mortimer's husband.
Sure. The dude who played him, I think, did a good job of being like just like off kilter, like downplayed just enough, but then at certain moments where like it's necessary to like go over the top, that was fine. And yeah, I think it's an effective force. I think that was well portrayed. Whether or not like the themes shown through, which we decided didn't really, but as the antagonist force, him embodying what I just said, I think he did a good job at it, and I was pretty impressed with his portrayal.
Absolutely, and you know how much I enjoy the banality of evil.
Yeah.
There's a couple of scenes in there that I really love because this is a man who constantly pushing alpha male image. And
Exactly. Yeah.
when he puts on his glasses to use the computer,
Yeah.
like is struggling with it. Well, the chink in the armor right there.
Cracks.
And then right before he dies, you get to see him going through, cleaning the toilets of the dojo, mopping up, and
vacuuming.
The pacing of that scene was perfect to just show how empty all of his bullshit is.
Exactly.
And I think he did a very good job. In fact, in a way, perhaps even more than Jesse Eisenberg, he was the crutch of making this world believable.
Yeah,
and
he was the driving force.
And I enjoyed every time he's on the screen. So.
Yep, I pretty much agree. So I think I'm going to give him solid 1 on that front.
And this would have been a really easy role to overplay.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I like the fact he kept it more low key than not.
And the funny thing is, you brought up Uncle Rico. I was thinking of Early Grace. That was from California,
Sure.
Brad Pitt's character, somewhere between the two of them is Sensei Leslie.
Sure.
Because, I mean, much like in California, I mean, he's dragging David Duchovny's character. And
Oh, you mean that California? Okay, I got you.
oh, yeah. But my
California
whole
with the K.
California with the K. But, you know, David Duchovny's character never turns that corner, whereas Jesse Eisenberg's character does turn a corner, but still maintains a certain amount of humanity. He doesn't go completely sociopath. Yeah, the actor did a great job. They did a great job with him. I'm definitely giving him a 1.
Yeah, his part was well written and well portrayed.
Speaking of a part that was well portrayed, I'm going to go on to protagonist here. Jesse Eisenberg as Casey was such a unique character. Almost mentally ill, because the thing of getting so involved in something that he overplays it and underplays it at the exact same time.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I got you.
Because for instance, when he just goes in and punches his boss in the throat because, this is what I was taught to do, and how to address situations.
Actually, that set up earlier with the 3 guys are like, I was looking to punch him in the throat. It's like, and then he goes back, he's like, I punched him in the throat and it was awesome. Right? Remember? Like, the joke all works.
And so I don't know if I ever was rooting for him to succeed. I mean, he's kind of an awful person too, but
it was an interesting, study of such a character.
Yeah,
I'll say.
it was. I'm trying to think of a good metaphor for another type of character I've seen do this, and it's just fascinating to watch this style of a weird guy is perhaps the thing to say, and maybe so socially oblivious that he is willing to dive so far into this toxic masculinity world that he doesn't know when it's proper.
Yeah, without even pausing to think about it.
I want to remember my yellow belt at all times. So he buys belts for every one of the colors, and for some reason they all like them.
Yeah, it's like.
Although I found it hilarious that he just gave the sensei a black belt.
Yeah,
which looks just.
That was an absurd part of the joke.
And the whole thing with the brown belt too. Yeah. He goes, "Look, I got a brown belt." Now everybody, it's just yeah. I mean, and those were the 2 that they pointed out. I mean, the yellow belt obviously with him,
but other people were wearing them just didn't comment upon. If you noticed,
but the brown belt and the black belt were the most commented on. That's why I like.
There's people wearing bright orange belts, not bright green belts.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you were saying about him being overstated and understated at the same time is that he was I don't know if I was rooting for him either, because even at his lowest there was still some sociopathic. I mean, he did have certain amount of sociopathy inside of him that he was really easy to manipulate, and that once he took on that persona, he was pretty easy to go along with it. He didn't really have a lot of remorse. I mean, he killed a guy.
Yeah, he was easily led.
Yeah, and when his dog was, was talking to the vet after his dog was killed, he's like, he's like, I didn't coddle him or anything like that. It's just like he accepted this, and it's, I mean, I think at the end he relinquished his power and turned back after he had already done what he did, but the movie never sought to absolve him of that. There was never a moment of time where let's give sympathy to this person. I don't think the movie ever wanted you to root for him either.
I could definitely see that. And also, he's still teaching at the dojo, but teaching the children's classes. So.
It's perfect, arc, as you said. So yeah, I thought he was a fascinating character. Now, whether or not you were sympathetic or even likable, that doesn't have to be one and the same. It's just that I think Jesse did a pretty good job of playing, like you said, this sort of weird, awkward-ish kind of person, and who fell into this bizarre situation. And he ostensibly wanted to better himself, better his life. I wanted to learn self-defense so I don't get mugged again. But found himself caught in this bizarre plot, if you will, with this creepy character who happened to be a sensei. So yeah, I like the overplayed, underplayed thing, somehow both at once, or at least switching off, because I think that really worked.
He doesn't seem like a real person.
Yeah, exactly.
But the best way possible for the story.
It's like an absurd satire, so he plays an absurd satirical character that's just real enough, but also not real, if that makes sense as well. So I think he did a pretty damn good job as it. And I like Jesse Eisenberg generally as an actor, and I think this is a pretty good role for him, a good movie, a good script for him to work with. Yeah, I'm giving him a 1.
Yep, me too.
Okay, Chris, supporting characters.
Okay, supporting characters. Speaking of people that I cared about, whereas Anna, you definitely, she did have some blood on her hands, and she did kind of cross that line, but she knew it.
She knew she was trapped in the system.
Yeah, she knew she was trapped in the system, and she knew that there was a line to cross and that she crossed it, which is something I was questioning about him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he never realized that she knew she crossed the line and told him that after he killed the cop, get out of here. Don't come back, save yourself. And he went back and actually killed the sensei. But the thing is, I feel like if there was somebody with actual human emotions who is actually a main character, it was her. Mm. She was the closest one to it. I'm not saying that she was
the most real character.
She was. I don't want to say, yeah, she was the most grounded because, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of caricatures and Jesse Eisenberg and Sensei, and then Anna was somewhere between them all. It's like, honestly, her, the vet, and his first dog were like the most genuine people in the movie.
Yeah.
The dog was a person?
No, the characters.
I'm just busting your balls.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
sure.
I'm talking about this is how it's a very quiet exaggeration and satire, but it is still an exaggeration and satire.
It's subdued, yeah.
And basically, when it comes to the supporting cast overall, they're caricatures. But I feel like, Anna was
kind of.
I mean, those guys are. I mean, those three guys in the lunchroom were that guy from Office Space with the O face. Were like him. Three different people. I mean, the only supporting character that was there the whole time that I felt that was actually a character was Anna.
I mean, I agree. She's like the most grounded one, and Morgan, can't remember her last name, but she did a really good job in that role. And again, with the script, gave her to work with. But I also liked Henry, like the older guy, the blue belt guy who thought he was promoted, had a tragic end. And even everyone else in the dojo, and the other guy who was like sort of Anna's rival, who got promoted ahead of her, and he was part of the motorcycle gang.
Weirdly, I felt worse when he discovered Casey had been invited to the night class than when he committed suicide, because the actor did that very well, being like
he was super hurt and betrayed
because they were developing a friendship up there, and then
so that's not a huge amount of supporting characters, but I think they all did a good job, Anna being the best and most important one to the story as well as portrayed. So yeah, I mean, you're right, there's not that many. Yes, the guys in all of his were characters, of course, and like his boss. You guys mentioned the gun chap guy that you liked.
Oh yeah, he was great.
Again, he had a small role, but he had a funny role, and it all made sense.
But they don't even think they even showed his boss's face, did they?
Yeah, no. What do you mean?
I think
he punched his boss in the face.
But wasn't it from the back of his head?
The guy showed up.
See his face?
You definitely saw his face.
I think you saw his face.
I don't know what movie you were watching, but you saw his face for like a minute or less. But regardless, I think the supporting cast was quite solid, and I'll give it a pretty strong 1.
Yeah, I'm on the boat. Chris?
Yeah, I'm giving it a 1.
Okay, and Scott, I believe it's dialogue with you?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to steal Chris's stuff. So there were certainly a number of jokes that I chuckled at. I didn't laugh out loud at all. But again, the nature of it, the script, it was more clever. I think I'll steal this from you too. More clever than haha funny, right? There's a lot of the setups were quite nice. They set something up very early on and would come back and then come back once again later. For example, he goes to buy a gun, decides not to take the karate classes, and then the gun chap guy calls him up and says, oh, it's still valid for another 6 months, so you can still get it if you want to. And it's never mentioned again until the very end when he just whips out the gun and shoots Sensei. That was a nice joke.
And in fact, he uses the gun he was looking at.
Yeah, the same exact gun. Sure, there were some funny lines, if not funny, then awkward, so it becomes funny if depending on your sense of humor. For example, when Sensei's talking to Casey about Anna, he's like, yeah, she's a woman, so therefore that's preventing her from ever becoming a man in capital, right? That's yes, of course, it works on 2 levels. So there's enough things like that. So not everything landed. Let me be clear about that. I didn't think everything was the best joke or solid. Even some of them felt a bit flat for me. But overall, it made sense. And again, being the nature of a darker comedy, satirical kind of thing, I get what they was going for, and the writing was strong enough to give it an okay 1.
they did a lot of deadpan humor in
Yes,
this.
exactly.
Which, again, works. I agree with you. Worked for a lot of it, especially Jesse Eisenberg's character as he is pretending to be an alpha male and doing all the absurd things that they do, but still his weird flatness.
Yeah, his like cadence and stuff. Yeah.
And also, Sensei was also like two deadpan characters going at each other.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right that not everything worked, except that there's one guy in my theater who, I think he's like 50 or 60, just laughing hysterically through most of the film. And I was like,
belly laughing.
dude, chill out. It's not that funny.
Yeah. So that's how I feel. So yeah, it's enough for one. For me.
Yeah, I agree. There's not anything I have to add to anything you guys said.
Cool. All right, style with me. I like the style quite a bit. The instrumental soundtrack, especially at the beginning, really fit the mood. And the shots were quirky movie shots.
Yes, exactly. Fuck you. Exactly what I was going to say.
And it served for the style of movie. Like, I feel like the director, I think it's a newer director, watched a lot of quirky films and like, I can shoot it like one of these. And they did.
Yeah, it felt like a Coen Brothers light film, if you will. Like, not like, just light.
No, but Napoleon Dynamite I'm going to bring up again, oddly enough. Like, they'll have the one where it'll be him standing in the corner and like the big field behind him or something like that. You gotta think about it. We have a character standing in the corner and the dojo presented for the prominence. I don't know, it worked.
I noticed I'll say like, sorry, just my quick thing about style is that like, there's sort of like a lot of voyeuristic shots, so like you're like up in someone's face, so like you're watching them watch someone else, like for example, he's like peeking through the blinds or whatever, watching the windows. So like, I feel like that maybe like they wanted that to contribute to themes a bit, but it still worked. Like you said, like, quirky movie style is a really good description for this, and I think it fits, so.
Well, two things. One shot that I really loved when he was in the car crying, that they shot it from what would be like his shifting column. That's where the camera was. So you kind of had this lower angled shot of him. I really liked. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting that the movie is pretty much taking place late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
And around that time, I was way back then when they actually had independent theaters aside from, like, in New Jersey, we had Montclair. There was like 3 of them. I was saying,
that's where I went to see this film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do they still have them up there?
Like Claremont?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Because I haven't been up there in a while. But when I was in California, there's like a movie theater on every block, and there's movies all the time. I watched a lot of independent films. So in a very meta way, this is very reminiscent.
Of that, yeah.
If you're going to take a cliched time period, this is the independent film. This is what independent films of the late 90s, early 2000s looked like. And this film took place in it. Yeah. So, I mean, I very much appreciate that. And
in that sense, I feel it was styled as an homage to those sorts of films. Because I think that was intentional. In a vacuum, if this took place today, I probably would give it a 0. But given that,
I think it was intentionally evoking those things.
Given that they're set in the time period and given the way it was shot, I thought the meta narrative of that was very, very clever. And it was a very subtle, dry cleverness, but it was, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I think the style worked for, again, given the nature of it and what it was, and no complaints really on any fronts.
Okay. Well, Chris, on to you with recommendation.
I have to say, I like this film. I wish I liked it more, but I don't like it enough to actually recommend it. I would definitely say, certain people I'd say, okay, you might check. I could think of like 2 people that said, well, if this is ever on Netflix or whatever, you might want to check it out. But no, this isn't a film I'd run out to tell anybody that they have to see.
Yeah, it's weird because like I enjoyed it well enough. I'm probably giving it an okay score, but I also feel the same way. Where like I don't. Again, my personal measuring stick is would I really want to see this again? Not like I don't have a burning desire to. Like it was nice to see it once, but I'm not trying to again run out or like even like breathlessly tell everybody, oh, you got to see it. It was so good. It was one of the best like dark satirical movies, like quirky kind of things. Like it was good. It was fine, but I don't think it's not gonna be all that memorable. I guess is what I want to say. So again, this might be a softer 0, but I'd just be like, you know what? it's cool if you don't see it. Like, if you get to it, sure, but really, like, it's not like something not need to watch, must watch film.
I wouldn't be upset if I had missed this episode.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm not going to reiterate what you guys just said. It's exactly
right.
it.
But I feel like it falls in that category, and I think we're all agreeing about that. So yeah,
It's no
it's
Midsummer.
just kind of where it is. Yeah.
No, and I loved Midsummer.
I did too. I can't let
Yes.
that movie go.
Right.
I liked this movie.
Yeah.
So, The Art of Self-Defense gets an 8.
All right, and that's fine. It's like a little bit higher than I thought I was going to give it, but it's still perfectly within range, I think, of what it deserves and for what it did. Yeah, man.
Again, I think to sum up, it's thematically messy, which leaves it a movie that is just kind of stylistic elements that you can take or leave.
Yeah, with some nice acting there, but again, it's not like making any lists for me.
And I was trying to figure out the whole time, like, since I was seeing, I told Scott, I'm like, this might be a sum of the parts better than the whole thing film. And I'm trying to figure out where is it falling apart. And I really talked myself into themes. And then I was just like, wait a minute. And then you brought out the doubts I had. I'm like, that's where the movie felt short. The fact that it didn't complete
It didn't
any one of its
capitalize on it.
themes.
Yeah.
It didn't, that it brought these things up and really emphasized them and didn't really ever come to a conclusion or really wrap it up. I think that's
it came
what
to a
killed
conclusion, but just not
It came
thematically.
to a narrative conclusion, but not.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like a
Yep.
thematic conclusion.
Gotcha.
And I think
Sorry.
that was to the detriment of the movie. I think that's what killed it. That's what
That's what prevents it from becoming a great film. It's a
Yeah,
good to okay
it's-
film, but
I'm going to forget about
It's
this.
an 8.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I'm Jonathan E. Menzer here with Christopher Morgan
Good night.
and Scott Thurlow.
See you next time in the next dojo.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan E. Menzer. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?